YouTube, you're back with Jessica Amy Rose, and today I am talking about my feeding tube. This is something I've wanted to do for quite a while because I think it will fit perfectly with this week, which is Feeding Tube Awareness Week. Woo! So I thought I might just talk a little bit about why I have a feeding tube and maybe just show you some of the things that I have that go with my feeding tube. I don't think that they are all that common, but I have a few reasons as to why I have one personally. So I think I'm going to start from like least severe to most severe reason. So I have EDS, which is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It was believed to be type 3, we now believe it's type 4, which is the vascular kind. I'm just waiting on a geneticist to confirm that. But this means you have super stretchy organs due to lack of collagen, which makes up for, I think it's 30 to 40% of the protein in your body. So with that, it means I have very slow motility. So things move through my digestive system a lot slower than they would the average person. Because of that, I actually suffer from dysphagia as well, so it's harder for me to swallow things than it is for maybe a normal person. I find it actually gets worse the more I've been relying on my feeding tube. So that's reason number one. Things will just sit in my stomach, feel incredibly uncomfortable, and it will take hours for it to go through. The second reason is I also have mast cell activation disorder or syndrome. And that means my body sees pretty much everything as an allergic reaction. Oh, I keep getting the softbox in my glasses. This is the benefit of having glasses, but I just think they suit me more than contacts. I'm going way off topic here. But that's mast cell means that everything I put in causes my body to produce a lot of histamine, which basically I just bring a lot up. So even with like different forms of medication, any kind of opiate, paracetamol, ibuprofen, like I said, opiates, codeine, all that lot, everything you would take in order to maybe help with the EDS pain or any other kind of pain that you're in ever, my body will just immediately reject within like an hour. So it also does that with a lot of food. So I'll take food in and I'll get really itchy and I'll get out of breath and eventually it will just come back up. So that's another reason as to why eating normal food is harder for me. For instance, when I have my feeding tube placed, the local anaesthetic didn't work because of the EDS, so they gave me IV tramadol and I ended up in ICU for a few hours because I can never say this, I went into anaphylaxis shock? Anaphylaxis, I went to anaphylactic shock. That sounds right to me. Moving on. The third reason I have a feeding tube, and this is the main one, this is the reason why I actually did get a feeding tube placed, is I have a very rare disorder. It only affects it affects 0.0, what's that? Oh, it's a snuffle, of course! Ah, it's Snuffles! Come here, Snuffles! It's a Snuffles! This is my puppy, Rin. She's making, do you want to talk about my feeding tube? Do you want to talk about why Mum has a feeding tube? Do you? Do you want to tell everyone the third reason? What do you think? Do you not know? No. I'd much rather chew everything, Mum, like your rose gold backdrop. She's a pug. She's 15 weeks old. Go on, go find Dad. Let me film. Needy child. Sorry about that. She is great at escaping. The third reason as to why I have a feeding tube is this disorder that affects 0.03% of the population of the world. It is a vascular compression disorder called superior mesenteric artery syndrome, which I actually have to educate pretty much all my doctors on because no one knows what it is. So superior mesenteric artery syndrome means that my superior mesenteric artery and my aorta, they go like this in your body. Your duodenum, which is I believe the third part of your intestine, goes through that angle between the two arteries there. Normal people have a fat pad, which is a little insular pocket of fat, and it basically stops those two arteries from compressing into your duodenum so that food can like pass through it normally as it would. For me, my fatty pocket is significantly at a lesser angle. So those two arteries are actually compressing way into my duodenum. So this just happened randomly as well, by the way. Sometimes it happens when people lose weight really quickly, or it can be, I believe, genetic. Mine just came out of the blue from nowhere. Suddenly I was just bringing all my food back up, or if I did manage to keep anything down, I was in so much pain that I just didn't want to eat at all. And so I don't think mine was from losing weight, because I know mine was the reason why I lost weight. I went from I've been going to the gym, I've been trying to bulk up, and I've gone from like 63 kilograms to 51 in 3 to 4 weeks, which is ridiculous. That is way malnourished. And I was seeing all these different doctors, and none of them knew what was wrong with me, and they were beginning to be like, is it all in your head? I think it's in your head. And I was just in so much pain and so weak, and because I hadn't eaten, all my joints were popping out and dislocating even more so, and it was really hard. But thankfully I was able to see the right doctor, Professor Aziz in London, who is a miracle worker and absolute lifesaver. He basically was able to do an MRI scan where they could see that angle that was a lot less than it should be, and then they were able to pinpoint the problem. So for a while, as you would have actually seen in my Primark haul video and my previous chronic illness video, I had a feeding tube here, which is an NJ tube, a nasal jejunum tube. Try learning all these long words, it's really hard. So that went, literally it went through my nose, down my mouth, my throat, and you could see it at the back of my throat, which was creeping people out. I find these things fascinating. And it went all the way down my esophagus, into my stomach, past the duodenum, which had the problem area, and straight into the jejunum, which was where my nutrition went. Because of that going into my jejunum, it means I can only have a certain amount of fluid an hour. So I only have, like, for ages, I literally started on 10 ml an hour. I could not tolerate anything whilst I was so malnourished and I'd lost so much weight. But now that I've been on it for a while and I'm healthy, I'm up to like 40 mils to 50 mils an hour. But I'll get onto that bit in a minute. I will show you at first my new tube. So after 6 weeks, we took out the NJ tube because it was just really painful. I sing, like I'm in a band and I do a music degree in vocals. So having an NJ tube, which was totally just rubbing the back of my throat all the time, was really not preferable. Plus I was getting nosebleeds from where I was irritating my nose, and then towards the end of having it, it was just ridiculous because it what was it doing? It was basically pulling my sinuses, so the whole side, which nose, it went in this side of my face, so this whole bit here was just painful. It was giving me like tooth pain because it was just pulling on everything. And then in the end, the damn thing broke anyway. So I had to go up for an emergency appointment and they just basically pulled it out, which was hideous. And I had to wait a few days for surgery to have the peg J fitted, which luckily I did quite quickly because obviously I was out without a method of eating whilst I didn't have an NJ tube. But yeah, the little cap at the end broke, so it had a hole in the rubber, so everything I was putting in, like when I tried to flush it, it was just squirting everywhere. My food was leaking, just did not work. So luckily though, I got a peg J pretty quickly, which I will show you now. I don't know how I'm going to show you my peg J tube. I think I'm just going to stand on my chair and try and do it that way, whilst being glamorous about this. There we go. I've got a dress on and tights, but I don't really care. This is my peg J tube. Whoop, whoop, whoop. This is the G part of it, which goes into my stomach, and this is the J part, which goes into my jejunum. This is my little tubey pad. Because my tube leaks all the time. Does anyone else's leak? I want to know, because mine leaks. But that is now my new form of nutrition. So that basically works the same way as my NJ did, and it's peg J, which means it just has, it goes into your stomach and then it has an extra extension part that goes into the jejunum. I hated this thing at first. I have a real love-hate relationship with it because it has been replaced 3 times in the space of a month. The first time my body, this is great, you'll love this. The first time my body rejected it entirely. So I had it fitted, which was agonising, by the way. I don't heal properly. So for weeks it was this huge open stab wound and it just didn't heal. And I couldn't take painkillers because I had to chuck them up, so it was really fun. So yeah, my body rejected it. It just pushed the inner tube right out. The inner tube that went to my jejunum. I kid you not, Christmas Day, we're getting ready to go, my mum's about to pick us up, we've got the new puppy, and I stand up and the thing falls out, and I'm like, shit, what do I do? And I'm leaking tummy juice. If you don't have a feeding tube, or you're not used to the gross parts of chronic illness, look away now, because there was tummy juice everywhere, like just spouting out, and I was like, what do I do? I had a pure genius thought, and I cut off the bit that looks like plumbing, cut the jejunum tube off it, and used it to plunge the outer tube, which is connected to my stomach, where all the contents of my stomach were pouring out, because that makes you feel dizzy, man. When that happens and you're losing that much fluid that way, you do not feel good. So I basically used that to plunge it up. Went to hospital with A&E on Christmas Day. My poor mum had made this huge Christmas dinner for the rest of my family, per my request, because of everything that had happened that year. This is becoming story time video, isn't it? It is. But for everything that had happened that year, I was like, Mum, please, can we spend Christmas Day as a family together? I'd been ill, my granddad had been ill. I thought it'd be really nice. She'd gone to all the effort to make all the food for everyone, and it had been left for like 4 hours, and she was trying to cook it all and balance it before I washed. She took me up to hospital. It was great. And even then they went, okay, we can't do anything for you because it's Christmas Day, so you can stay in until the 27th, and then you can wait and see what will happen, and maybe we'll have a doctor who knows what the hell to do next. Because my doctors are up in London. So that went great. So that was the first problem I had, and in the end I managed to wait a few days, and my doctor who fixed it for me and just put a new inner tube in. That was the first time it went wrong. The second time it went wrong, with that replacement tube, the cap was faulty. I don't know what you call the part that has the little opening to it, but that was faulty. So basically, no matter how much you tightened the screw to keep the inner tube connected to the outer tube, it would come out, and again, stomach contents leaking everywhere. So it would happen at work, it would happen at uni, and I went to pets at home one time with Rin for a vet appointment. As we left, I was like, why is everyone looking at me funny? And suddenly thought, oh no, I can feel wet. Oh no, I can smell. What is this? And I looked down and pretty much vom all over my trousers from my tube. So that was a really fun bus journey home with the dog. It was great. But that all aside, this is my third tube, and I love it now. Now I'm like absolutely love what it does for me, how it keeps me alive, and how it gives me nutrition. So that did become story time. Sorry. But now I'm going to show you what goes in my tube. So it took me going through a few formulas to get the right one. I do not tolerate most feeds well. We definitely tried a good number of feeds before we moved to this one. But currently I'm on the Nutrition Peptosorb, which seems to do well. Seems to be better even than the other soy-based one actually. So plus I actually prefer these because they're in 500ml packs, and all the others were in a litre pack. I'm little, like I'm short. That holding that all day long, you've got to have your books for uni or whatever, your normal bag stuff, you've got to have your feeding tube bag, then you've got to have drinking water, then flushing sterile water, and that's a lot to carry. So the fact that I can just have this, and that's 500ml, and I can do something like some of the day, some at home, is lovely. But yeah, this is like I think it's basically pre-digested or semi-digested, which sounds really appealing, but that is what is good for me and what I can tolerate. So I've got this stuff to show you as well because I thought it'd be really interesting. You basically connect that to one of these. This is a giving set which goes in my pump. Where's my pump? I haven't got my pump. That would be really good to show you my pump, wouldn't it? But yeah, this connects to my pump. And then this is the syringe you use to flush your tube out with water between flushes. And yeah, that connects to the pump and then goes into your tube. So you can eat while you sleep, study, work, play, everything. I'm actually gonna get my pump. Ta-da! This is my pump. It's from Nutrition. They're the company that I'm with. I am tempted to move over to Abbott because I've heard really good things, but this is what my district dietitian and district nurse, my community dietitian and district nurse this is who they work with. So this is what I've got for now, which is the Nutricia Flow Care Infinity Pump. Woo. So that is basically what I use. The other things that I use is I have sterile water for when I'm really dehydrated, because sometimes my body will still decide to just be sick. Sometimes even when I'm on my feed, or if I have a sip feed that I can usually tolerate, like an elemental or something like that, which is again pre-digested, my body will just go, no, back up, just randomly, or it'll be some kind of GERD reflux thing. So I have this, which I will put on at night if I feel like I need more hydration. This is really good, just sterile water. And the other thing I have, because getting your hands on sterile water like that is hard, I do prefer you to make your own sterile water by boiling a kettle and letting it cool down. I have these containers. Woo! Actually, I might get one of these out because these are new to me. I did not know. I asked for these after doing my own research. This is basically a container. You put whatever you want in. So what I do is I have an adapter to go into the G part of my tube. This is probably the only thing I use the G part of my tube for. Everything else goes in through the Jedge. I use these banana bag oral solutions. These are amazing. They're from the States. I had to order them online. The shipping is a little bit to the UK. I think it's like $14, but obviously considering you're getting it from the States, it's pretty good. So this is basically, if you've ever been in hospital and had the yellow IV solution, which we Spoonies lovingly refer to as a banana bag, this is basically everything that's in that. And a lovely Spoonie on Instagram actually told me about these, and I was like, how do you have an IV at home? And she went, no, it's this. And basically add this to water. It comes with an instruction booklet that has all the information about what's in it. It has every single vitamin, everything that's actually in the IV solution, so it's amazing. Just add that to this, pop it in my tube, job's a good one. The reason I do that is because I actually cannot tolerate large volumes of liquid at all. Even water will just fill up in my stomach and make me feel really sick. And even as it trickles past the problem area, it just is really, really uncomfortable. It will give me a lot of reflux. As a singer, I don't want a lot of reflux. And equally, it just doesn't feel very nice. And sometimes it again will just come back up. So that is why I put a lot of these things in this and do it through my tube still. You can also crush your tablets and put them in water and flush them in your tube. There's lots of things you can do, which I really, really love it for. And I think that's it. I actually waffled on for quite a lot longer than I intended to, but that is the gist of everything really about my feeding tube. And as it's Feeding Tube Awareness Week, why not include everything? Anyway, thank you for listening, and if you like what you see and want to follow my adventures, please like and subscribe. It would make me happy. I'll see you next time. Bye.